Here's what Papias has to say about this. You see, he's being quoted in Eusebius. Mark, having become the interpreter of Peter, wrote down accurately, though not indeed in order, whatsoever he remembered of the things said or done by Christ. For he neither heard the Lord nor followed him. But afterwards, as I said, he followed Peter, who adapted his teaching to the needs of his hearers, but with no intention of giving a connected account of the Lord's discourses, so that Mark committed no error while he thus wrote some things as he remembered them. For he was careful of one thing, not to omit any of the things which he had heard, and not to state any of them falsely. So Papias is saying, why do we have the Gospel of Mark? Because Peter told Mark his account of what happened. Papias isn't the only one who says this. Irenaeus will also say this. Matthew issued a written gospel among the Hebrews in their own dialect. There's a lot of discussion about that. We'll talk about it some other time. While Peter and Paul were preaching at Rome and laying the foundations of the church. After their departure, Mark, the disciple and interpreter of Peter, did also hand down to us in writing what had been preached by Peter. Luke also, the companion of Paul, recorded in a book the gospel preached by him. Afterwards, John, the disciple of the Lord, who also had leaned upon his breast, did himself publish a gospel during his residence at Ephesus in Asia. So a couple of important observations we can make about this. When you read these writings in the 2nd and 3rd century, you'll start to see a lot of them pop up. Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Peter, all these using apostles' names. Gospel of Nicodemus, the Apocalypse of Mary, okay? What are they doing? They're trying to give credibility. Like, oh, this goes back to this ancient person who's really important in the story. But I want you to notice something about the Christian Gospels. They had every reason in the world to make up the Gospel of Mark and call it the Gospel of Peter. Who's more important than Peter? And yet, they say it's written by Mark. Why did they do this? Because it's how it actually happened. It's how it actually happened. Now, why is that important? Because the early church cared about who wrote the books. They're not changing the narrative to get people to follow the religion.